In a similar vein, Rav Aharon Halevi Soloveitchik, who headed Yeshiva's Brisk in Chicago, obviously a Rav Soloveitchik, the Rav's brother, the non-intellectual side of Rav Aharon Halevi Soloveitchik and his sensitivity and tenderness to a young teenage student.
This story is a bit embarrassing for me, but I tell it because of the beauty that's embedded in it. When I was a young man, I was an avid sports aficionado and an avid sportsman as well. I can no longer attest or in any way demonstrate that kind of prowess. And I would play basketball late at night after school and homework. I would often go to my Yeshiva high school early to daven and then play basketball before my shur and before my classes began. One early morning at the age of 13, I traveled to the Yeshiva I attended, arrived after the dawn had broken, and the building was empty and desolate. And being of New York origin, and therefore trusting no one, that's the nature of a New Yorker in some respects, I began to look for a place or a person where I could park my svarim and school texts and be assured of their safety. I researched the area, literally I combed the area. I searched the entire building. And finally on the second floor in a library, I noticed a Toras scholar with a fiery red beard, learning a Blat Gemara. I didn't have a clue whom he was. I was all 13, but I was gratified. Here I found seemed to be a fine human being. I could ask him to watch my books, my svarim, and the like. When I approached him with this request, he responded in English with a European accent. He asked me, "What is my status? Am I a shemechinam? Am I a shemesachar? Am I a shoyel?" The different Baileys that the Torah describes in Pashas Mishpatim. I was dumbfounded by the question at two levels. First, I simply asked him to watch my briefcase, and he responded with some sort of Talmudic rejoinder. Secondly, I had no idea of what he was talking about in terms of the Talmudic background. He looks at me, sees my quandary, and in Yiddish he says to me, "Setz dich weg, please sit down, and I'll explain to you all these concepts." I was extremely exasperated, extremely annoyed. Here I am, a 13-year-old. I needed somewhere secure to park my books. And now I see my plans of the day are being snuffed out by this very regal-looking sage explaining to me some Talmudic pilpul. He then proceeded to learn with me the laws of the varying and diverse shomrim of Pashas Mishpatim. Along the way, he discussed different positions of Gedolim Rishonim in a number of Gemaras. It was a rather protracted discussion. When it was over, it says, "It looks to me like I'll be a shemechinam." Namely, you don't plan on compensating me. I had no intention whatsoever at that point in time of compensating him. And therefore, I have minimalistic responsibility. My only liability is pshia, negligence. Essentially, all my plans for the day were foiled and negated by this extended peroration on the part of this sage. But I was happy that I found the shomer to take care of my things. In the course of the day, I noticed that this esteemed Rav, in one hand, is carrying Gemaras and other Svarim, and the other hand, my briefcase. Everywhere he went, I was amazed at his indefatigable commitment. As a young, rather naive person, I was so taken by his genuineness that I asked him from time to time if I could simply take whatever sefer or book I needed, and he'll continue to keep them in a safe place or continue to carry them wherever he went. He agreed with total equanimity and simcha. And this procedure went on for a number of days. In the middle of the week, when I was taking one of my books from him, there was another venerable Rav who observed the proceedings and saw what was happening, the exchange that took place between myself and Rav Aharon Halevi Soloveitchik Zatzal. And I didn't know who he was either, but he approached me and asked me if he could speak with me in a corner. He takes me to a corner and asks me, "Was tut ihr? What are you doing?" I explained to him that this first Rav had agreed to be my shomer, and he carries out his responsibility in the fullest, the most meticulous fashion that I've ever seen. The second Rav, who was angelic looking, and with Zokon Lovon Yored Al Midosav, a rather beautiful white beard. Upon hearing this, I think he had apoplexy. I think the white pallor he exhibited was greater than his natural white appearance. He then asked me, do you know who that first Rav is, whom you asked to be your shomer? I said, no. He said, that is none other than one of the Gdolei Ador, Hagon, Rav Aharon Halevi Soloveitchik, and one of the Gdolei Rosh Yeshiva of our times. I was shocked and speechless. He said to me, you can't use someone of that stature to be your shomer. That's inappropriate. That's even not permissible. It's a violation of Kavod Torah. When I queried others, who was the person I encountered who edified me regarding my errant behavior, I discovered it was none other than also one of the Gdolei Ador, Hagon Rav Lifshitz Zatzal, one of the Gdolei Rosh Yeshiva, a Rav in Suvalk in Europe, and certainly heralded as one of the outstanding Gdolei Ador. Of course, I immediately took back my briefcase from Rav Aharon Halevi Soloveitchik Zatzal. I apologized to him without telling him what precipitated this action. The next day he sees me and he says to me, why didn't you give me your briefcase today? I can assure you, I carried out my responsibilities as a Shem Mechinam. I was not guilty of any kind of pshia. I was not negligent. He cited to me a Rambam in the Chiros, where the Rambam says the only time in Mishnah Torah the Rambam uses this expression, Shara Yaakov Atzadik. The Rambam says Yaakov Atzadik, he was careful guarding the sheep of Laban. He said, "Bechol koichi avarati asavichem, hoyisi bayo machalani chorev v'kerach baloila batidash nosi beinoi." In the frost, in the heat, irrespective of the weather conditions, whether the nature of the weather was, I took care of it. I was astounded, flabbergasted by this Torah giant who saw no difficulty regarding my briefcase and was overwhelmed by the fact that the only reason my taking back the briefcase was perhaps a negligence on his part in halachic tort law, a breach of his responsibility he had accepted. This introduction at the age of 13 to Aharon Halevi Soloveitchik Zatzal left a searing, lifelong impression on my innocent, youthful persona. Immediately I became enamored of this giant. From then on, I attended his weekly Hashkafa Shiurim and was totally mesmerized by his genius, but above all, by his warmth, by his accessibility. I was astounded how a Gadol Torah of this stature would treat a very young Bar Mitzvah Bacha with such respect and friendship as if he was talking to one of his peers. Again, an unbelievable insight into Gdolei Yisrael and the outpouring of chesed towards everyone, irrespective of age, irrespective of stature, every human being, v'ahavta l'reach l'kamoch.